In our top story this half hour, we asked just how safe are farmers and farm workers in the country. The shocking rate of brutal murders and robberies has prompted calls for urgent solutions. And joining us to unpack this is from AFASA, which is African Farmers Association Transformation Committee member, Dr. Sandile Dlungwane, SANCO, which is the South African National Civic Organization, spokesperson Chris Malimaja. We also have Director of the Institute for Security Studies, Francois Korf, on the phone line. We also joined by Farmers United South African President Ronnie McKenzie, and Dr. Jane Baez is the Safety and Risk Analyst at the Free State Agriculture Department. And thanks to all our guests. Good evening to you again. And let's just start in terms of the statistics and what methodology is being used. And we'll start with the Institute of Security Studies, if you may, Mr. Korf, in explaining to us how are these murders targeted specifically because these are farmers, as we've been told that it could be because it's based on racial lines?
If it's based on
racial lines, that they are particularly, white farmers are being attacked. Give us a scenario as to exactly under which conditions are the killings and robberies being perpetuated, and whether it is indeed about the fact that it's either a white farmer or is it opportunistic crimes as well?
I think in all aspects it's opportunists that are taking matters in their own hands of enriching themselves. But I also think there's an external element that is part of this whole farm killing thing. If you look at a residential area where people are living in, they are living in confined small quarters. And seeing that they're living in confined small quarters, it's easy for them to protect themselves in all ways with some kind of equipment. Early warning systems, CCTV camera, electric fencing, those kind of things, have guards on site, and have the general public also in a community that work together. On the farm it's a bit different. You will see that the farm attacks and the modes of operation that they use on farms are different. You'll see some high farm crime, you'll find them with military signal frequency scramblers. And they will scramble any single frequency you can think of, and that farmer can't get any signals out. But that's in very extreme cases. You don't really find that too often. More crimes on farms, small things that happen will probably be just petty crimes where they steal tractor tires or batteries and things like that. When it comes to farm murders, it's a whole operation that has been thought through, and it's been sitting in someone's hands, and they are planning a farm murder. And there's obviously money involved, and some government officials also, as you see that when they do investigations, they find that the weapons used on farm murders are police issued and military issued weapons. So the farmers really need to come together and stand together and actually talk to us for better solutions to protect themselves and their families on farms, because the farmers are giving us food for the whole nation, and they are the ones supplying us every night with a plate of food and keeping this economy on the go. If we don't have the farmers, we've got nothing.
All right, we also have Dr. Baez on the line, from the Free State Agriculture Safety and Risk Analyst there. Thank you so much, Dr. Baez. Just give us, what we're trying to establish here is the intelligence behind how to mitigate or even to curb farm robberies and murder, and I suppose as a microcosm of what's going on in society, just the brazen lawlessness that we're seeing. How best is this particular community being treated?
Yes, good evening. I think what the rural safety strategy actually entails is not really a reactive approach, but also a proactive approach. So we from Free State Agriculture, we value this quite a lot, that we need to, as farming communities, and especially in rural areas, try to have a proactive approach. Now, there are few steps, and I think there are almost 10 of them, that guides a proactive approach in terms of to get to a more safe environment. So one of the things why we are in the position in the Free State, and I think it's all over the country, is that the informal networks are very much important, and the first step is to have a very good working relationship with all the occupants and the workers on farms, because they are the persons who are actually knowing what is going on in their surroundings, in the immediate environments, and also they relay information to the farm owner, the producer. And what we've noticed in the Free State the past 3 years to 4 years is that it's not only the producers that's being attacked, but this is not a new phenomenon. It actually was pointed out by the Commission of Inquiry already in 2003 that the workers and occupants also get attacked. So it is much important for us to focus on the contribution and the involvement of the workers and the occupants on farms, whereby specific information is already available, and then also works closely together with the SAPS as the primary role player within the rural safety strategy, whereby we work quite well with crime intelligence structures in the rural areas, with the police, with VISPOL, with the detectives. A lot of community effort is being inputted to create awarenesses and also
Dr.
to get the information.
But your rate of success with all these interventions and collaborative efforts, how effective has that been?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I'm saying that the rate of the success of all these interventions in reducing or completely eradicating farm killings and robberies, how effective has that been?
What is that? Sorry, I can't hear you properly.
Yes, I'm saying, have you been successful in reducing the attacks on farms?
Definitely. This year, we had already prevented 14 of the farm attacks in the Free State. Last year it was 16. The year before that also 16, 17. So it's now for the past 2-3 years, we try to also identify what are the prerequisites and also why it is necessary to prevent this. But information is central. Information. You can't prevent a farm attack if there is no direct information readily available.
All right, stay on the line, Dr. Buys. We also have Mr. Korf from the ISS, the Institute for Security Studies. Just to pick up on your train of thought where you're saying that the farmers are important, essential for food security, and that they need to be prioritized in a sense. Are you saying that there is neglect, if you will, that the farmers are deliberately left out in the cold, so to speak?
Are you directing the question to me?
No, Mr. Korf.
Okay.
If you can hear me, Francois.
Sorry.
Yeah, are you saying that there isn't adequate support for farmers? Are you saying that they're being left out in the cold and not part of the national security strategy?
Yes, look, they are left out in all aspects, in security aspect, in funding from government. But to come to the point what you're asking for, security matters, if they are left out, yes, they're definitely left out. If you're looking at any country in the world, food security is your #1 economic turner. So if you don't have food, you've got no economy. If we carry on the pace that we are right now, farmers are selling, they are getting out of the country, or the land is taken away from them and putting into someone's hands that cannot produce. We are not able to produce any food. So if the government does not protect these farmers, we're sitting with one big chaos on our hands very soon.
Stay on the line for us, and Dr. Dlungwane is from the African Farmers Association as a Transformation Committee member. Is the experience the same for you of black farmers versus white farmers, or is it just the entire farming community that is being under siege?
Well, our position as a FASA is that certainly this has got nothing to do with race. There are white farmers as well as black farmers who are under attack. But obviously there could be some, minor racial undertones. But what we have actually discovered is that it has more to do with socio-economic conditions. There are people, and we think that these, crimes, like all other crimes, they are just more opportunistic crimes that are driven by poverty, unemployment, and inequality. All that we need to do is to make sure that all the stakeholders, including the white farmers, we get together, but of course the security establishment as well, and make sure that this matter is indeed addressed. Because if it is not, it is actually a threat to food security. But obviously it's always important. I mean, I heard one of the panelists now talking about the land that is being taken from whites given to people who will not necessarily use it. Again, I mean, such statements are not quite helpful when, you know, the government and the country is dealing with such a sensitive issue, which the president, for instance, almost referred to as the original sin. So it's always important not to make such reckless statements, as it were.
And I mean, that's again, we now on the land reform submissions or public hearings getting underway in earnest, that we need to have that sense of calm and sobriety when we talk about issues of land, including whether farmers are deliberately attacked based on their race. But I want to come from the civic organization in what your role is in this particular matter, in ensuring that there is equal participation and that there is adequate information and security for farmers.
No, thanks, man. I think from where we are standing as SANCO from long time, we've been saying the killing of farms is not what we are here, it's not what we condone. But what we normally want to add is not necessarily all the farmers that are killed. Even the farm workers are also becoming the victim of the whole exercise. So whatever research and the outcome of whatever search in terms of stats must also include the farm workers, so that it be seen that it's not only the farmers that are killed, but also the farm workers, and they need to be protected. But at SANCO, we have been forever saying we have a number of campaigns starting from the Know Your Neighbor Watch, where we think is the only way as a community we can come in and ensure that farmers are linked to the nearby rural areas, to the nearby urban areas where whatever is stolen from that particular farmer can be sold outside. These are the things that makes these opportunists not have a market. Because the more we don't necessarily condemn that, is the more they think we are the market, then stealing from these farmers, it has got a potential of them making money. So as SANCO, we totally condemn that, and our effort is nothing but outreach to the farmers and make sure that the farmers are working hand in glove with the community structures that include your CPFs, that include your mayor street committees, so that at the end of the day, there's no market for this opportunist.
All right, let's get a word from Ronnie McKenzie. He is from the Farmers United South Africa as their president. Mr. McKenzie, thank you so much for your time. I have the view that it may just take a little bit of interconnectivity with your neighbors, as Mr. Malimaja is suggesting, that you have an auxiliary support, which is an extension of the community where you live. Before law enforcement can get involved, you at least have a neighbor in close proximity.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thanks for the opportunity, and good evening to the listeners out there. Cindy, you know, it's unfortunate, I would say, that the likes of SANCO would have much to say, yet nowhere to be seen. The Department of Labor, equally so, nowhere to be seen. Most of these farm murders and things that happen in the farms is because there is no monitoring or any evaluation happening. The Department of Labor, when last, do we have any inspectors today that go through to farms to visit and see the conditions in how farm workers are living, how farm workers are paid, the type of farm workers we have as farmers? Most of these farm murders and killings or security, it's always through people that know exactly what's happening on the farm. Nobody can just come randomly to Mahalisburg, to my farm, and start robbing me or doing whatever.
Mr. McKenzie, I'll have SANCO respond, but my question was that at least this particular initiative, to know your neighbor, that people need not be in isolation. You know, they can draw from their network around them before the authorities have to be called.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's very important to know your neighbor. But now, Also, you know, as much as your first speaker was talking in terms of even the doctor from the Free State was speaking about it's not a racial issue, and also Afasa was speaking that it's not a racial issue. I would like to disagree to a large extent that it's got a lot to do with race in terms of these murders, because you find the ill treatment of, I for one, have come to Magaliesburg and coming with Ubuntu thinking that I will be working with my neighbors and, you know, having that sense of knowing I come from a location, we all knew each other in the street, Mola, it's who stays there and all that. But I realized, no, it's very cold out here. You can extend your hand out to your white neighbor, but it's not about that. As a black person coming into farming, you're expected to actually fail, and in a very big way. And those are the type of challenges that we are having as black farmers. Again, I would say to you, there's a lot of sabotage amongst farmers themselves. They instigate robbery to other farmers. They instigate a whole lot of things. So this thing should not also just be pointed out at government or at fellow farm workers or all that.
Yeah, Francois, please stay on the line, Mr. Mackenzie. Francois, has any of your research indicated that there could be deliberate attempts to ensure that emerging farmers do not succeed with all forms of sabotage meted against them?
I do not agree with any of that at all, no. Farmers do not sabotage one another. I myself farm part-time as well. My father is a farmer, and I come from a farming community. There is definitely no sabotage under farmers. If a new farmer is in the vicinity and wants to farm, guess what? It's difficult farming. You get no support from the state if you're white. If you're white, you will find no funds whatsoever. We've tried with so many channels. BEE partners joining in, giving them the business, try to move forward. As soon as there is a white person, they will not get funding. Getting funding from the state gives you zeros.
Maybe Francois, maybe your partners were not suitable. I mean, yeah, not to interrupt you. I mean, you know, I'm not sure how many attempts you made. Maybe the partners themselves were not compliant, or they could have been something else. But we'll get a word from the Department of Agriculture and find out if there is indeed a sidelining, or deliberately so, from white farmers in accessing funding. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to have to push you also, Dr. Ndlungwane, whether those are your experiences, that you find things are essentially just given to you on a silver platter because you're black.
Well, I believe that is actually not factually true. In fact, black farmers are really battling. Over and above being also part of, you know, AFASA. I also represent, there's an organization called GFADA, Grain Farmer Development Association. I'm a director of that. Now, we support emerging farmers, but our experience is that farmers, black farmers in particular, simply do not have access to funding. And also, I mean, even from institutions that are supposed to be developmental in nature, such as Land Bank, they still would expect black farmers to actually, you know, produce your collateral, something that they obviously wouldn't have. So those are the kinds of discussions that we're having. So in a sense, I wouldn't say there's a sabotage by white farmers, but the reality is that they are historically advantaged. All right, because they were supported, for instance, by government pre-1994. But the point is that, I think the point that I actually concurred with was that, yes, there could be some racially undertones on these attacks, but the reality is that it's more the socio-economic conditions as opposed, because we have statistics that suggest that black farmers are also being attacked in the same way that white farmers are also being attacked.
And the conspicuous absence of SANCO in issues of the conditions under which farmers are working, etc., when these robberies are, the criticism, at least from Mr. Mackenzie, your response to that?
I think Mr. Mackenzie must join the line and come and join SANCO and make sure that these farmers don't operate isolatedly from other community structures, because to him it's like SANCO is nowhere to be found, but whereas SANCO is all over, it's got membership. Once they join as farmers, we are able to create a structure, and it's not far away, it's talking Magaliesburg. I've got a region in West Rand. We are looking for these farmers so that we tell them how to defend yourself in the absence of police. So simple. We formulate what is called a street committee. Apart from the street committee, as the farm, we are going to form a farm committee that will have a way of networking and a way of signal in terms of danger. Then, in terms of the farm workers too, we also have a problem, because the very same farm owners are the ones who are abusing and exploiting these farm workers. And when it is them, it's like it's only the state that counts for them and own their life, and forgetting about the farm workers. We are representing nearly everybody in that particular institute. Therefore, let them join and allow their own members to join SANCO. We will protect them.
Okay, and just a very quick one from Dr. Buys, and I'll come to you, Mr. Korf. Dr. Buys, is there in your research also a collaboration between black farmers, white farmers in accessing opportunities, dealing with issues of redress, and also support for emerging farmers?
Yes, definitely. When we at Free State Agriculture, when we actually provide the statistics, our statistical analysis, we speak about the whole agricultural sector, irrespective whether it is subsistence farmers, upcoming farmers, or commercial farmers that's been targeted. So when we give these figures, we actually try to represent the whole of the agricultural sector. So in the Free State. So it is important, and there is lots of collaboration and working together in the sector. We're working with the MEC's office, the Secretariat, in the INDIZOs, in the safety summits, in the interventions in the rural safety strategy, with all the role players, with the National Prosecuting Authority, with the SAPS, with every department within the priority committees to address the issues. And also to direct the actions and the necessary action steps in order to be proactive in stopping or trying to prevent the farm attacks and the farm murders in the Free State province.
Yeah. So this is something that can be replicated. I'm sorry, we're really pushed for time. And very briefly, yes, Mr. Korf, just your response to what Dr. Ndlungwane was saying, that it is equally as difficult. There is red tape, there's bureaucracy, lack of historical collateral, as he was calling it, that white farmers are enjoying. So it is not that the picture has suddenly changed since '94 or the introduction of BEE codes. I think we've lost that line there, I'm afraid. Yes. Yeah. So maybe just wrapping it up in studio, not to create a sense that it is all doom and gloom, that in our attempts to deal with issues of injustice of the past and creating equilibrium, etc., in the society, that the struggles are real for black emerging farmers and including some white farmers as well. So where do you bridge that gap?
I think for us, the issue of working togetherness between whites and blacks is very critical, because, I mean, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, you know, black and white. And therefore, obviously, we actually have to come from that, you know, era of, you know, seeing, you know, ourselves as black and white, but working together, especially as farmers. Because all farmers, irrespective of race, they really have a huge responsibility of ensuring that there is food security. But the reality is that there are still black and white organizations that represent farmers. So we definitely have to try very hard. It's not going to be easy, but we've got to try hard enough and make sure that there is that unity.
And SANCO can play the mediator, I suppose, in those engagements. Why is it we haven't seen, or maybe there may be success stories that are not told, where there had been a voluntary process of engagement, collaborating, and ensuring that we all succeed?
No, thanks. I think in many cases, like in Val, many farmers around Val, they do listen to SANCO. They are part and parcel of the campaigns of SANCO. So we will just urge all farmers to ensure that they join where there are communities So they attend all these community meetings. That is where we'll be trying by all means to forge unity, so that at the end of the day, when we talk of farming community, we don't talk of race, white, blacks. We talk of farming community inclusively, so that at the end of the day, whatever attack is not on one race, not on the other race. So whatever they're doing, they're in one business. We understand in business there's no time for sympathies about profit. But at the very same time, working together will create what is called a rainbow farming community.
And talking about the symbolism, the Rainbow Nation and the sense of unity in diversity, but we saw at a particular protest where the old South African flag was flown because of some gripe that farmers had, and in a sense of resistance in sharing in the spoils and in the sector. Is that still a big problem in transforming the sector?
You know, to be honest with you, Cindy, I think in the farming sector, environment, there is still that there are still people who are still yearning for the good, so-called good old days. I mean, the fact that people in a new democracy, they could raise that flag, when in actual fact there have been all sorts of compromises to have this democratic breakthrough. It actually suggests the problems that are there. Much as I actually said that challenges are not necessarily racial, but there's still an attitude, a paradigm shift that is still also required, especially from the white farmers as well, in order to assist in create an environment where there is that social cohesion, as it were.
We're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. And that's Dr. Ndlungwane from the African Farmers Association as the Transformation Committee member, and SANCO spokesperson Chris Malimaja, Director of the Institute for Security Studies, Francois Korf, on the phone line, and the Farmers United South African President, Ronnie McKenzie, and Dr. Jane Bass, is Safety and Risk Analyst at the Free State Agriculture Department. Thanks to you at home for watching. We'll take a quick break. We'll see you shortly.